Today, we're going to unravel one of humanity's oldest and, let's be honest, most complicated inventions, government itself. We're going to pull at the threads of this incredible, sprawling story.
So, to really get our heads around this, let's start with a powerful image. Imagine a mythic figure, let's call her Althea, watching from way up high as we humans weave this grand, messy, and sometimes magnificent tapestry of how we choose to rule ourselves.
And right at the very heart of this whole story, woven into every single thread, is one fundamental conflict. It's this constant tug of war between our deep, deep desire for individual freedom and the absolute need for collective order. You know that paradox? That's the engine that drives all of human history. Okay, so let's rewind. Let's go all the way back to the beginning and look at the very first threads Althea ever saw get woven. We're talking about humanity's earliest forms of getting organized. For most of our time on this planet, we lived in what you could call the circle. Just picture a small band of hunter-gatherers. Their entire world was shaped by something called Dunbar's number, the idea that you can really only know about 100, maybe 150 people. So a leader, let's call him Thok, he had influence, sure, but not authority. He couldn't just give orders. He had to convince people. The real government was just consensus. And if you broke the rules, the punishment was getting shamed or kicked out.
And then, one single piece of technology came along and completely changed the entire shape of human power. Forever.
And that technology was agriculture. Suddenly, for the first time ever, we had extra food, a surplus, which created this huge new problem. What do you do with it all? How do you manage it, guard it, and hand it out when your population is exploding into the tens of thousands? The old circle it shattered. And the solution was the pyramid, a super rigid hierarchy with a god king at the very top. And running the whole show, a brand new invention, the bureaucracy. And get this, here's a wild truth about this new kind of state. The very first use of writing, it wasn't for epic poems or myths. Nope, it was for taxes. It was for accounting, keeping track of who owed what to whom. This is the birth of what philosophers would later call the Leviathan, this massive artificial beast built out of laws, paperwork, and, you guessed it, taxes. For thousands of years, the pyramid was pretty much the only game in town. But this next part of our story is all about the incredible, centuries-long struggle to put some limits on that absolute power, to try and chain the beast. And you can see these slow, hard-won victories right here. The fight really kicked off in ancient Athens with Demos Kratos, literally power to the people. Rome took that idea and refined it, creating a republic with written laws, with checks and balances. And then, fast forward 1,000 years, and a bunch of angry barons in England forced a king to sign the Magna Carta, which established a truly radical idea that even the ruler is not above the law. All these earlier ideas finally came together during the Enlightenment with this theory of the social contract. Thinkers like John Locke started arguing that a government's right to rule doesn't come from God. It comes from the people it's governing, and its only real job is to protect our natural rights. If it fails to do that, well, the people have the right to change it. I mean, this idea, it's basically political gunpowder. And that gunpowder absolutely exploded in the Age of Revolutions. From the American colonists to the revolutionaries in France, this simple, incredibly powerful idea just completely flipped the old world order on its head. The source of power was no longer the divine right of some king, it was the will of the people. So as we get into the modern era, a new force starts to reshape everything, the Industrial Revolution. It created unbelievable wealth, sure, but also huge new problems, brutal inequality, miserable cities. And this crisis, it unleashed some powerful and pretty dangerous new ideas about what government is even for. And out of that crisis, two major totalitarian ideologies bubbled up, communism and fascism. Now, they had very different goals and they pointed fingers at different enemies, but their method was terrifyingly similar. Absolute, total control by the state over every single part of a person's life. I mean, just listen to this quote from the fascist movement. It perfectly captures that ambition. This wasn't just about controlling what you did. It was about controlling what you thought, who you were. The whole idea was to completely dissolve the individual into the state. So, after 2 world wars and a long Cold War, the liberal democracies were the ones left standing. But they were different. To survive, they had to evolve.
They created these huge social safety nets, things like public health care, pensions, labor laws, all to soften the harshest edges of capitalism and stop extremism from taking root again.
And that brings us, believe it or not, right up to today. Our final chapter looks at the wild, unprecedented challenges of trying to govern in a world built on silicon, servers, and smartphones. So here's the central question for our time, really. In the 21st century, is your elected government the only power that's actually shaping your life? Or is there something new at play? Look at this contrast between the old and new forms of power. On one side, you've got the classic nation-state with its physical borders and public constitutions. But on the other, you have these massive global tech corporations. Their territory? It's the digital platform. Their law? It's the terms of service that you click agree on without reading. And their authority comes from a secret, proprietary algorithm that can literally shape your reality. And far from just being a tool for freedom, modern tech has given authoritarian regimes a toolkit that 20th century dictators could only dream of. The state can now watch everyone all the time with a perfect digital memory. It's a flawless, tireless system of control. So where does all this leave us? Well, if we go back to our image of Althea's loom, the most important thing to remember is that this story doesn't have an ending. Not yet. The threads are still being woven, right now, by all of us. Because ultimately, government isn't some alien thing that's forced on us. It is us. It's a piece of technology that we invented to solve the problem of living together. It's a mirror. It reflects our flaws, our biases, our moments of pure genius, and our constant, nagging hope that maybe, just maybe, tomorrow we can build a better, fairer world. And so we end with a question for you. From the circle to the pyramid to the network, the pattern is always changing. The next thread is in our hands. What story will it tell?
Please like and subscribe.